All right, today is Wednesday, the 18th of November. And as always, if you want to go out to the P drive, there should be a folder out there under the P drive for the class. It's got a few more jQuery examples. Before we get into that, though, there were a couple things that I wanted to mention. You've seen this stuff before, but I want to make sure you know about it. All right. First of all, I am supposed to mention to you that if you have not yet registered for Spring and you plan on registering for Spring, please register for Spring as soon as possible. All right, because they're trying to get a count and figure out if they need to add more sections for certain classes. That's especially important with general education classes. But we're supposed to say that to you. Second, there is a bake shop today from 12 to 12:30. All right, if you care. And I also wanted to mention, now these are, if you're a full-time student in the program, these are the classes that you'll be taking next semester. All right. What you might find is in one or more of the classes, you might have different people in there that you've never seen before. I've got certain second-year people who have missed a class here or there who are planning on taking these. I've got a woman who I've been in email contact with. I have not met her, but she's interested in starting the program kind of off cycle, so to speak, so starting it next semester. And I've recommended that she takes the MySQL class, the one with Denny. And I said she's welcome to take any of the other classes, even if she doesn't meet the prereqs. We're not supposed to encourage that, but she's already got a 4-year degree. So I don't think it's going to be probably as troublesome for her as it might be for other people. I don't know, though. All right. But as far as the classes, that if you're taking the classes with me, I just wanted to show you. So, because sometimes people care about this, they see this and they go, whoa, wait a minute, $155? You use this book for both the beginning Java class and the advanced Java class. So that immediately you can kind of look at it sort of in a way it cuts it in half, because you're using the same book for both classes. And typically what I do, you can notice there's 17 chapters in there. We go through approximately chapter 8 in the first semester. Do we ever go farther than that? I've already made it as far as chapter 10. This book, this is a new edition, but I've used this author for several years. All right, it's the same author of the C# book, so you're going to notice a lot of duplication. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. You'll be able to understand, hopefully, some of the differences between the syntaxes of the language. Because bottom line is, once you learn the syntax of a language, virtually all languages are the same. All right, so that's, like I said, at a minimum, we'll go through those 8 chapters. All right, for the other class, just so you see this, because it's a little bit more long, drawn-out type of thing. But the class, as you can see, and for whatever reason, the author decided to put this into alphabetic order here. AngularJS, JavaScript, and jQuery. He does JavaScript first. Then he does jQuery. Then he does AngularJS. All right, and if you look in here, Chapter 1 is an introduction to dynamic web programming, and I'm not going to go through any of these. Chapter 2 is debugging JavaScript. Chapter 3 is understanding dynamic page anatomy. Chapter 4 is CSS and CSS3. Chapter 5 is starting to add jQuery and JavaScript to a web page. That's the first part of the book. The way I plan to attack that, so to speak, is from day one, we're going to build a website. And it's going to start out, it's going to be really simple. All right, it's not going to have much in it, but we'll eventually add to it and add to it and add to it. So at first it'll be just HTML. Then we'll add some CSS to it. We'll add some JavaScript to it. We'll add some jQuery to it. All right. The second section of this book is basically, it's all on jQuery. All right. And that gets us really, the second and third section gets us through, and the fourth section, through chapter 20. I don't think we're going to get any further than that. All right. And it's, as an instructor, it's kind of up to me to pick and choose, all right, what chapters we go through. I will tell you that for one of the second year classes, the class that the second year people take that's called Design and Implementation Projects, they're using this same book. All right. Many of them have talked to me about the coverage they had of jQuery when they took the class, so I decided to go back and we're going to do some review in there. But with them, we're going to literally go through the JavaScript stuff in about a week or two. Then we're going to spend 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 5 or 6, I don't know, on the jQuery stuff, and then we're going to go into the Angular. The reason I'm telling you that is in there, they'll go through the whole book. So by the time, what I'll do is I'll take those lectures from chapters 20 through 27 and I'll copy them. All right, so they'll also be there on the YouTube stuff for your class. So in other words, you'll have lectures for just about the entire book. Okay? If you're interested, and again, maybe you're not, and it's okay, but I typed in here just for the heck of it. I found this online. It's not the book, but it's chapter 1 of the book. So if you wanted to start taking a look at it, you can see in more depth and breadth of coverage what each chapter goes through. I'm not going to do any of it. But what they do is they go through literally chapter 1 of the book. They put it out there so you can take a look at it. So if you want to see it, look at what we're going to start with. All right. Again, there's a table of contents, etc. I don't think this book is as expensive. Something tells me that it's somewhere around $40, something like that.
Got it for 25.
All right, 25. Okay. All right. This book is not very cheap either, and this book is cheap. All right. I'll be really interested in hearing from Denny, via you guys when you do your course evaluations, what you think of the Muroc book. And the reason for that is Muroc books are very different. They're, if you look at any kind of book, so here's, 1 page and here's 1 page. With Muroc, what they have is a bunch of text over here. And then they usually have an example that goes along with that text on the next page. And virtually every page is like that. Some people really love that format. Some people really hate that format. They have big code examples in there. That particular book has got 2 or 3 complete databases in there already. Denny had contacted me and said, well, what chapters in that book, do I have to go through? And I've told him already. All right, I'll let him go through that stuff with you. And he asked the same thing in this class. And I told him in there, again, he'll go over that with you. Right now, if you look on the schedule, and if you've already signed up for classes, it might very well say that you have the MySQL class in here. I talked with Denny about that yesterday. The room he teaches out of is 2617. You see it as you walk in the main door. It's the networking lab. He plans on having both those classes in that room. So most of you, if you're in the database class with him already, you already are familiar with that room. I hope he does that just for one reason. I have no problem with him being in here. But what that will mean is that if he's teaching those classes, which are 8 to 10 Monday, Wednesday, and 1 to 3 Monday, Wednesday, I'm going to put in for this lab to be open. In other words, then they won't schedule any classes in here. So if there's ever a time he doesn't have class or whatever, or you're not in one of those classes, you'll be able to come in here because the more open lab time we get, the better. But I have to remember, and I have to go up during the break today and tell that to Tammy. So if I forget to do that, nursing has, for whatever reason, loves to schedule this room. And I hate that. All right? They sit outside in the hall and they make noise and they cackle like crazy. And if you think I'm being sexist, it's mainly the men nurses that are making the noise. All right? Because I've gone through this with them before, and I don't want to do it again. So, all right. That said, like I said, if you go out to the P drive and we take a look at what's out there, there's the folder, and there's just about 5 more examples, all right? This probably will take a half an hour or less, all right? And I've said this to you before. I'm saying it to you again. I just want to make sure everybody hears it, and that is that I only want to take work through like next week, okay? So, if you're behind and if you got any assignments to turn in yet, Please have them turned in by next week. All right. And the plan still is next Monday will be a lab day. All right. It's the last scheduled lab day of the year. All right. Wednesday, of course, we don't have class. I don't know if they have decided yet. I don't think Kristen has, but there is at least a chance, and I'll let you know by Monday of next week, the school is open Wednesday. All right. So if you do want to come in here, if you need help with other classes or you're behind, we don't know if the lab assistants are going to be here or not because they have not made that decision yet. I will tell you that virtually every instructor will not be here. All right, because they made it an optional day. They've never done this before. I've been here, this is my 24th year here. They have never had Wednesday be an optional day. So the question got asked yesterday, why are they doing that? I think they have a scheduling committee here, and I think the scheduling committee decided that there's enough people that have kids that are off on that Wednesday, so a lot of people don't come. So I think that's what they're doing to see how that works. All right. So as we look at the examples here, again, these are some more jQuery-ish examples. So I'll just bring all of them up. And I'll do the same with the associated JavaScript. All right, so I've got all of those examples here. All right, all right. So as you take a look on here, these are going to look very similar to some of the stuff that we talked about before, just so you know that. So I'm going to do it kind of the same way I did it the other day, in that what I'll do is I'll comment stuff and uncomment stuff and just kind of work my way down here. But again, as I said, there shouldn't be any kind of problem finishing here and being done by no later than 9 o'clock. All right. And again, the idea behind this is to just get you introduced to some of the stuff that's in here. That's it. All right. If you say, well, yeah, because I'm not going to be an expert on it. No one's an expert on it. All right. But what I envision next semester when we go through this website is eventually to have a fully functional website that's going to utilize a heck of a lot of stuff. All right. We're going to do that as a class, and then part of your assignment for next semester is going to be, okay, now using this kind of as a template or whatever, I'm going to want you to start to create your own personal portfolio. And what that is that'll be an electronic copy of basically everything you have done and are going to do at Blackhawk. And it's the kind of thing that if we get all that working and done, with John's help, we'll upload that stuff to Site 5. And what that'll mean is, for instance, at the end of the year, if you want to start looking for a job or showing people your wares, you'll be able to externally get to that and show people copies of your work. All right, that's how you get hired. All right, and I'll just tell you, this summer, I interviewed at about 5 or 6 different places. Every place I interviewed at, they offered me a job. All right, one of them was $30,000 less than I'm making here. You know, I actually almost laughed when they told me the number. And then they couldn't believe that I didn't take it. All right. But there were none of them that were within $10,000 of what I'm making here. Otherwise, I'd be gone. But the point is, when I interviewed and I was talking to people, I said here, and I showed them my YouTube channel, and there are now over 600 videos out there. And, I go in there, and I don't know if you know this, but when you interview for an instructor position, you got to do a little dog and pony show. So in other words, you got to give like a 15-minute talk where they think in that amount of time they understand whether or not you know what you're talking about. The thing that's great about that is I gave 3 of them this summer, and every one I gave, none of the people there had a clue as to what I was talking about. So I could have made stuff up, and it would have still sounded pretty good to them. All right. But they all told me, I told all of them, I said, I don't know how much you can get out of 10 or 15 minutes, so here, and I gave them the YouTube channel. I said, here's 500 or 600 videos. Now you can see whether or not I know what I'm talking about. In much the same way, you have to start being able to make your own mark, so to speak. I'll probably be contacting some of you during next semester as I get, as companies contact me and say, hey, I'd like to have somebody create a website for me, or I'd like to have somebody modify a website for me, or whatever. All right. And all I can go by as far as, when that happens, is as far as who I offer these internships to, are how you've done in the class. And you're only taking one class with me, so that might not be very fair. But that's all that I've got to gauge by. All right, so I mean, if you're doing well in the class, if you turn in all the assignments and you've done well with them, you might get contacted by me. And the way it works is there are some years, some semesters, I hear from 10 or 20 people. Some semesters, I hear from 1 or 2. So if you're interested this summer in working on an internship and you know of something, all right, Roger came up to me and talked to me about a possible internship that for him, from an existing website that hasn't, what'd you say, updated in 5 years, and yeah, typically if it's 5 years, it's probably kind of old. There are plenty of websites that are still out there that literally what people have done is, they've got the old trifold type of thing, and they take their trifold and they put it out there on the website. That's their whole site. If you know of somebody like that, or if you're working for a company, etc., that's fine. Just let me know about it. I mean, I've got to okay it, but there are very few that I deny. Okay. All right. So same stuff that we saw before, so there's nothing really new in here. So let's just take a look at, in fact, I'm going to close some of this stuff because there's just way too much open. All right. So as we go in here and start making some changes, etc. to it, all right, some of the examples in here, again, are really, really simplistic. All right, and that's, I think, believe it or not, I think that's a good thing as you go in and you start looking at them. All right, just to let you know when you start doing things, what can happen. All right, so that's why I said many of the examples that are in here are real simple. So why would I put examples in here that are real simple? Because if I put stuff in here, I started doing this. I started creating a slideshow today in jQuery, and it was kind of cool. I put a bunch of Beatle albums, and they were sliding across the screen. And I thought, well, that's all fine and dandy. You can look at that. But then when I started to explain it to you, it's like most of it's not going to make any sense. And I thought, well, what are you going to get out of that? Well, that was kind of cool to look at. Okay, fine. All right. So when we start this stuff next semester, there'll be a lot of it when you'll take a look at it. You'll go, wow, this is kind of stuff we did last semester, or this is real simple stuff. Yeah, because we start simple. All right. I would suggest that, for example, with this class, that you keep your book. All right. You might go back and take a look at it next semester or even the semester after that. Okay. Sometimes people say, no, the book was $40. I can sell it and get $20. Okay, that's fine. Whatever you want to do. These are just a bunch of alerts. I should have run this before I came in here. Sorry that I didn't. So. All right. All right. Well, there's the first one. Now, not that this is a big thing, but I just wanted you to see this. When I click the test button, what I'm telling the system to do is to grab any paragraph that's in there, and these are the 2 paragraphs, and convert them into hyperlinks. All right? You may say, why the heck would you want to do that? That isn't what's important. The important thing is by clicking a button or entering something or whatever, I can take existing text in a website and convert it to anything I want to convert it to. That's what the important part of this is. And that's what you have to start realizing is when you use things like jQuery, is you're able to modify the website on the fly. So you can ask a user information. What's your favorite color? As an example. I mean, it's a dumb example, but it's one people can identify with. So this could be right here. This could come in and it could say, what's your favorite color? And you could give you some choices or let you put something in. And let's just say it gave you 10 choices. And you pick that particular color. You click the button, now the background of the website changes to that color. All right. It could be something as simple as that. So it allows you to do a lot of customization, for lack of better words. And this is not a great example, but I'm just going to show it to you anyway. This last one that's in here, I believe all that happens when we run this You say, nothing happened. Yeah, when I click here, something happens. So again, I could set that up where if you don't put so let's assume, for example, that I'm having you input stuff into a form. All right. And what I want to have happen is when you click the button here, I want that form to be sent out to a server someplace. And it's important that you understand that. I know I've explained this before, but you have to understand that if I'm on the internet and I'm out at some website and I'm filling out a form and I click a submit button, usually what happens is I'm already out on a company's web server. But almost always what happens is either that company or another company has a database server. So all the stuff that's in that web server gets sent to that database server. All right, so there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. Well, if it gets to the database server and I've left stuff blank, then it's got to come back to the web server again. And the web server has got to write error messages so it can send me that in HTML. That's a big waste of time and effort. All right, that's why we've talked about before how you can go in and you can validate on the client side, and you should. But the problem with that is people on the client side can turn things off. You can turn JavaScript off on your own machine. You can't do it on these machines because I asked them not to let you. All right, but you can basically go in on your own machine and turn it off at any time. And sometimes people do that for whatever reasons, be they good or bad. All right, and sometimes people just don't know. But if I had something in here where if it was left blank, I could set up a bunch of default values. So when you click this, it automatically fills those things in. All right. So again, as I mentioned before, it's a way to not only customize but do a lot of different things on the fly. All right. If you look, there's not a lot of examples here. There's one example. All right. And let's just take a look at it and then we'll run it. And ideally, at least, it'll make some sense. All right. When I run this, I'm not going to press any buttons or anything, but when I run this, that's what it looks like. As you probably guess, every time I click this, it's going to add another one. So if I click it once, it's going to say, this is unordered list item 5. Click it again, 6, etc. So it'll add a new one. Every time I click remove, it'll take the last one that was entered in there and it'll remove it. Now start to think about some of the logic that you'd want with that. For instance, once I get down to this one, and I remove this is unordered list item 0. I don't want it to say this is unordered list item -1, -2, but if I didn't put code in there, it would do that. Because again, the computer is only as smart as the logic that you put behind it. So when we look at this, for the add LI, which is that first button, what we're saying in here is get a count. So go through the unordered list and figure out how many children that it has. So again, if we look at what it has right now, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children. Even though we start counting at 0, there are still 5 children in it. So it figures out what the length is. Okay, so that's 5. So it says, I'm about to click add LI. So it should say, this is unordered list item 5, right? Because that's the name of the count. And we started with 0. If I wanted to start with 1, I could do that. And then I'd put in here count plus 1. I could do that. So there's a lot of different ways that we could do that if you didn't want an item 0. And then what are we doing here? We're actually here, all right, we're using JavaScript and jQuery, and we're actually writing a new element. We're writing a new LI element. What LI element? TXT. So we're telling it to make this, and inside of it, add the text that's this that we just figured out from right here. And then we're telling it to go to that unordered list that we have, and we're telling it to grab that thing that we called new LI and append it to our unordered list. So again, every time I click this and I click the add LI, it's adding another one. And I can keep going. It will not stop. It won't run out of memory or anything else. If I really had nothing else to do, I could do that all day long. All right. Then if we look at it from the other direction, when we click remove LI, well, the only thing that's in here that's important, like I said, is we want to make sure we don't start putting in negative numbers there. So what we're saying, if the length is 0, just return. You're done. Don't do anything. Otherwise, grab the last one that was in there and remove it. Remove that list item from our unordered list. Now this is a simple example. It would be more complex if we had many unordered lists in here, because then we have to give each one an ID, for example, but the idea would be the same. So again, as you see when you run through this, okay, and again, that may not look that important, but I might ask a person questions at the website, and they'd put an answer in there. And then whatever the answer would be, they'd click a button, and boom, it would start adding it to the site. It would actually start adding it as text in the site. All right, I might ask, what are your favorite hobbies? What are your whatever? And I could build a page about a person, and I could build it dynamically. All right. All right. There's a lot of them here, so I'll just go through a couple of them. But if you look on here, there's one theme. Okay. Unordered list. Grab all the children in that unordered list and put a red outline around them. That should actually make total sense to you. So in other words, I run this, okay, you can see what happens. All right, and I could take time and I could go through every single one of these, but let's just take a look at what we have in here. All right, this basically is going to do the same thing. Okay, but I'm saying start at the body. When you look at, let's just go down a little further. All right, these say all paragraphs. Put a red border on there. Again, same type of thing. Why is that the same thing? Well, if you remember, I can use either p tag, or since I gave them both a class of para, these two things, this line right here in line 10, and this line that's right here in line 14, they do exactly the same thing. All right. Again, is one better than the other? No. All right. But the reason I put the examples in there is sometimes, so notice if I remove this, so now I don't have in there a class of para. All right. But now notice that if I run this one, this says all paragraphs. And you notice, I guess all that stuff came along too, but right there. But notice if we look at the other one, let's grab this whole line here and cut it out. Now what you notice is the first one isn't done anymore. That's all I'm trying to show you. Because so much of what we do next semester, all right, is going to be working with IDs, is going to be working with IDs and working with classes. More than anything else, that's what we're doing next semester. All right. Then you can come in here and you can work with siblings. You're like, siblings? Well, the best way to show you that is to run this. Right. You're like, what the heck is that? What that is, literally, is that's all things that are at the same level as an H1. All right? So what you're doing here, and the reason I'm taking the time to show you this, is you are doing what's called either traversing the DOM or walking the DOM. So a document object model is built when you do this. The system knows how things are set up. Literally, it creates something like this. If you just take a look up there, it says, okay, we've got an HTML tag. Right under that HTML tag, we've got what? A head tag, and we've got a body tag. And it starts to build this. Under the head, we've got a title. Under the title, we've got some text. And it builds this thing. And what I'm telling you is as it builds this, anything that's here that either has a tag and or has an ID and or has a class, you can now manipulate. And that's what jQuery, more than anything else, that's what it's all about. So when you see cool stuff on a website, a lot of times that's what it is. Stuff fading in and out, you saw that the other day. stuff changing colors, sliding up, sliding down, or whatever. Most of the time, it's done with not much code. All right, if you look at the examples that I put in here, there are very few examples. You know, they're all one line. And that's why I was getting that other stuff was printing out where it shouldn't have. Thought that I commented that out and didn't. All right. So if I come to here and I say H1 and I just say next as an example. All right. Why did it do that? Because that's what comes right after the H1. That's literally what comes next. And when you work with next, and you'll see this in just a second, I'm not going to run through most of the examples, but notice not only is there a next, there is a next all, there's a next until, etc. So next, you already saw that. There's a next all, which says give me basically all of them. There's a next until, which says show me all of them until you come up with an unordered list. Whether you realize it or not, when you put stuff in here and you start putting a dot in there and you call method, you're programming. Whether you realize that or not, you are programming. All right, and what do I mean? Well, this says from the first paragraph, grab whatever comes next all the way until you find an unordered list. And all that stuff that you found in that, add a red outline to it. All right. And not only is there a next, it's typically called prev, but it stands for previous. So you can either work your way down from where you currently are, or you can work your way up from where you currently are. All right. Now, as an example, you can't work your way up from there. You can't work your way down from here. When you get down, and typically it's where it's got text, though that's what's called a leaf node. You've gone down as far as you can go in the thing that you're working on. You can use first and last. All right, so this would grab just the first LI. Okay, so if you look at that one. All right, you go, what do you mean? Why does it have it like that? Well, let me check one thing first. Yep. What's the parent of an LI? What is an LI inside of? A UL. All right. So again, you can do anything you want in here. There's parents until. All right. This would work with the first LI. That was the one I thought I was showing you. That's why I gave a little funny face there. But again, that should make sense. This should just grab the first LI element and make it red. All right. So you're going to see a lot of this next semester. But the point is, when we start to go through that next semester, the idea is we're going to go through that pretty quickly because you've already seen it. These examples will stay out there. You can go back and take a look at them if you want to do so. Yes?
So if you start with 0 and you want to do alternate, like odds and even change, block 1 and not get 1?
That's just a dot odd or a dot even.
So, but it would start with 0 though, right?
Yes, by default. Now, can you change that? Yeah, there are ways programmatically you can go in and change that if you really want to. And sometimes what it is instead of using dot odd, you use dot even. That's all. All right. Not only can you use next and previous and first and last, but if you want just a certain one, you can use dot EQ, which, as you probably would guess, means equal. All right, so when I look at this, 0, 1, 2. I said equals or EQ 2. All right. Again, the examples that are in here, they are purposely very simplistic. I wrote these and rewrote these. All right. Not only that, we can filter some stuff. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, let's take a look at it. Before we even run this, let's look at what's in here. All right. You'll notice that this means nothing. I just put a class in here that says active. It doesn't mean anything. It's just that it's got the word active in it. That's all that matters. All right, that particular LI. which is unordered list item 2, same one that we looked at last time. All right. So now if we look at this, it says filter and just grab the ones that are active. And you can say, well, that's what we did for the other one. Fine. Then let's grab this. And let's put it on the last one. We'll put it on the next one. How about right there? All right. So now that says class equals active. It's not going to work. Did I do something?
You got an extra.
Yeah, I got an extra. Well, it actually would have worked, but it would have shown that. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
It would have looked ugly anyway, though. There it is. All right. So what I'm trying to show you is you are programming when you do this. Because people look at this, well, this is just a little dinking around. It's programming. I love hearing people say, I'm a web designer, I'm not a programmer, but they know how to do all this stuff. They're programming whether they want it, whether they realize it or don't realize it. All right. And this would just be, so if I use this one right here, this would say everything but that one. And it's hard to see, but that one literally does not have a line around it, this one right here. All right. All right, just one more thing that I wanted to mention to you then with the next example that's here. Close that, close that. I did not, I forgot all about going back and trying to fix this, so I didn't. All right. The idea behind this one is, and I'll run it for you and then show you everything that's in here. I might have run this the other day, I don't remember. But I type ORD. If you don't know that, that's the designation for O'Hare. All right. And I click Get Info. So what does it show me? The airport name, where the airport's located, what the current weather is by the airport, and what the current temperature is. All right. So what's cool about this example is it 100% it uses AJAX. That's what's cool about it. All right. And again, AJAX is asynchronous JavaScript and XML. There's really almost no XML used in this example, and I'm going to show you what is used. But instead, we used JSON, which is JavaScript object notation. So I just want to take a couple minutes and go through the code that's in there. And it might not make a whole heck of a lot of sense, and that's okay. So how did this change? This is all the HTML right here. So notice there's just some paragraphs. And we've got an ID where we're going to fill in the name of the airport, another paragraph with an ID of city that will fill in the city, here that will grab the weather, and here we'll grab the temperature. All right? And we've got this, the jQuery line that's in here, etc. Okay? So if we look at the associated jQuery, and the magic, so to speak, that makes that happen, this is the finished product right here. So let me just take it from the top and show it to you from the beginning. First thing that I wanted to mention to you is just, again, I'm showing you this stuff so you see it. All right? And I want to run this, and I just want to show you something that's actually in here that you may or may not have been aware of. All right, so I'm going to go back here and I'm going to run this. And right now, I don't know if it works or not. No, and that's okay. But what I want to do is I want to hit the F12 key on my function keys that are at the top. All right, and what that does, if I look over here, let's see, someplace over here, and I got to remember where it is in this particular one. There's something that's over here that allows me to go to the console. Anybody remember, John? You remember how to get to the console from here?
Not in Chrome, I don't.
Yeah, I know. I actually bring it up in Firefox. Thought that would probably happen when I did this. So, and here all I use is Chrome. On the machine I have at home, almost all I use is Firefox, and I can't tell you why that's the case, but it is. All right. So when I run this, yeah, I'm getting an error and stuff, but the point is, when I go down to the bottom under console, what I can do down here is in the console is it shows me information. Okay? And does this matter? Yeah, it does. I just want you to see this. Notice it says XML and then it says exception 500, the airport parameter is required but was not passed in. So in other words, I didn't put anything in there, and then I clicked. Well, when I do it again, it now found some stuff. So it's showing me this is all information that the system now has. This is XML right here. And this is what's called an XML prologue. And these are all different XML attributes. Delay, the name of the airport, the state where the airport's located, the name of the airport, etc. All right? The point is, I could print all this stuff out, and I don't know about you, but reading that would be a little bit difficult. So what we did with JSON in the later examples is we parsed it out. And we said, what I want you to do is I want you to go into where it says IATA, and I want you to grab that information and put that in and grab this and put that in under the name of the airport. All right? Grab this and put it out there under the weather. You understand what I'm saying? Because what you get when you run this stuff, when you run it and create a simple AJAX request like this, is you get XML back. All right? And there are different XML functions that you can use to do what's called parse XML. Everything that I just showed you, that I showed you in the last example, was done with JSON. But you could have done the same stuff with XML. But it's a little more clunky to work with. That's why when most people talk about AJAX today, they don't say that it's an acronym for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. They just say it's AJAX. Because more and more people are using JSON and less people are using XML. All right. When XML was started, and maybe you've heard this from me or somebody else, it was touted as the next big thing. After HTML 4.1, there wasn't going to be another HTML. Everything was going to be replaced with XML, and then they started doing this. People said this is just way too hard to understand. Now, some software still uses XML and uses it extensively. And you can take XML like this, you can grab XML like this, and you can open it up in a browser. Literally, I can sit there and grab all that information, copy it, come into here, and I'm just going to save it to the, I can put it here, it doesn't matter, but I'll save it as airport.xml. And you notice how the colors change. So it's recognized by the system. And I can go and I can say run it. All right, and that's what it is. That's exactly how it appears. And I can take things, and you can notice how I can click that to expand and contract anything I want to expand or contract. All right, but the biggest knock, so to speak, on XML is that it's verbose, it's wordy, and you make your own tags. Some people love that. I get to make my own tags. Some people hate it. I get to make my own tags, and it just depends on who you are. All right, so in that first example that I showed you here, that's all it did. But notice, all we're doing here, we're not going to anything that's ours, so to speak. We are telling it to go out to this website, right there. So we're saying, I want you to go out to HTTP, services, FAA, etc. All right, and this is just something I made up that's called code. Then it says, when you go out there and you find all of that information, replace whatever's in that code with the actual value. So in other words, if I go out to here, I don't know if it's going to let me do this or not. All right. Does that look familiar to you? Does it kind of look like what we just looked at? I guess there's just not as much information in there. But the point is, it's the same stuff. All right. So what we said was, go out to this website and take all that information that you're going to grab me, okay, and it would be called code, but replace it with the actual information, and then grab that data, and we want to do something with it. Well, right now it's not doing anything but showing it, because this on data received that you see right here, that's this routine right here. And all we're telling you to do is to log it or just show it in the console. That's all we're saying to do. All right. Well, if you look at the next example, because they get progressively more complex here. So if you look at the next example, that's pretty much a rehash. But if we look at the last example here, now what are we saying? Now what we're telling it is, okay, I want to log it, but what I want you to do is I want you to show me the name. I want you to show me the city. I want you to show me the weather. And I want you to show me the temperature. It's doing the same thing. But what I'm asking for is more information. So when I run this one, now this is the one you've already seen it, because when I run this, it actually gives me the information. All right, so that's all filled in. But if I come in here again, in fact, let me go back and run it one more time. Now if I hit F12 and I start looking at, come on, where are you? Now it looks a little bit different, but when you start looking at it, that's all the information that it's providing me. And now I'm starting to parse that or convert it into JSON. Why does that matter? Because this, technically, this is a lot easier to read than the stuff you saw before. Again, you may or may not agree with that, but the consensus among developers is that's much easier to see. All right. And you also notice, or maybe you notice, that under weather, all right, there's another thing under weather that's called weather. So this weather holds all of the information that you see right here. It holds the temperature, it holds the visibility, it holds the actual weather pattern, and it holds the wind. All right? So why do I even tell you that? Because when we're grabbing that stuff, so this has got to go to weather to grab this. This has got to go to weather temp to grab that. So why am I telling you that? Because now what you're doing is you're not only programming, but you're tunneling your way down a data structure to look at what it is you want to find. All right, so when you look at that, again, data.weather.weather, data.weather.temp. But we're doing the same thing here. All right, the last example, and it doesn't work, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. All right, so like I said, this last example here will not work, but that's all right. Because this will be the end of this, and it'll allow me to just talk about one last quick thing. All of these work because I started with the same one that we ended with last time. So that one works. That's the same example. This one is the one here. These don't work. All right, and I progressively built this, but for some reason, this last one should have worked and it didn't work. But it shows you all the things that you've got to worry about here. All right, and like I said, I'm not going to run this, but I wanted to show it to you. That is this. Same kind of thing, all right? When you click the button, it should be doing all this stuff. So it should be sending all that stuff out to the console and letting you see all that stuff. The problem is, what if I come back here and I run this and I put nothing in there? All right, so I click Get Info. Like I said, for whatever reason, I didn't get this to work and I forgot to look at it some more. But just so you see it, what's supposed to happen then is it's supposed to call on error. And it's supposed to figure out what the error was. All right? And so if we look at this, and again, I played with it a lot. Okay? This is the actual message. But they work both with messages and with codes. And this is all stuff you're going to learn as you go on in here. That if you go and you ask a server for a file, and that file doesn't exist. You ever go out to a website, there's a broken link? And it comes up and it shows you something and it says something like 404, file not found. That's a return value that you're getting when you're requesting something. So you're making an HTTP request for a file. The response that comes back to you says that file doesn't exist. So I tried to do that in here. Then I tried working with timeouts. I said, give it like 10 seconds. And if it doesn't work within 10 seconds, just have a message comes up that says, the server took too long to respond. None of that stuff was getting hit. But notice, because this is the last thing, as we're building this request, I have to put in all that stuff. All right? You see right here, this is all we had in here before was just the URL. but now we're having type get. All right. If you haven't heard this before, you should have in your 157 class. There's gets and there's posts. All right. If you haven't heard that yet, I'm sorry, but you should have. And what you'll see next semester, and you may have looked at this in the database class, I don't know. Denny told me he's shown you the SQL window, so I don't know if you've worked on that or not. But next semester, you're going to write things like this. You'll have a table that's called employees, and you'll write something like this. Select star from employees. And what that does is it says, go to the employees table, and from that table, grab everything and show it to me on the screen. But when you do the word select, you can't change the stuff that's on the screen. You can only look at it. Okay? But you'll also learn how to do inserts, updates, and deletes. So why am I telling you this? All that stuff put together, the select, the insert, the update, and the delete, that's called CRUD, which is create, read, update, and delete. All right, well, you can see the update and the delete and the create are right here. So that's the CR. And the read, that's this. Well, the reason I'm telling you that is a select like this, that's a get. That means you can look at the data but not change it. All these are equated with post, which means that you can conceivably go in and change the data. Here I don't want to change anything, so it's a get. If it worked, it should have called on data received and do everything it was supposed to do. All right, including. If this says to come on over here and I want to convert that information over to JSON so I can print it out. All right, if it fails, it should call on error. And it should wait 3 seconds, and if it can't get a response back within that 3 seconds, it should have called that thing in the on error routine, which said it timed out. That's not working. All right, but as you see, when you start going through there, you start real simple and you get more and more complex. All right, and that's what I want to show you, because that's what we're going to be doing next semester. All right, because people sometimes say, geez, I didn't know what the hell I was getting myself into. Well, all I can do is try to show you what you're getting yourself into. All right, and that's it. That's all that I had.